Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock, it is time for the Head to Toe Care Show. Dr. Riadh Fakhoury is your host, and he is a chiropractic orthopedist and owner of Fakhoury Medical and Chiropractic Center right here in Ocala. His office is located at 1009 Southwest 16th Lane, and the phone number over there at the medical center is 351-3413, 351-3413, and he's here to answer your questions. So if you have a question for him on the air, please don't hesitate to call. Don't wait till the last minute, because your answer might be long, and we need to hear everything. It's the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 352-622-WOCA, 622-9622, and just throw this in there just to embarrass you. In addition to being a chiropractic orthopedist, also a karaoke star.
It's a problem when Joe's around, right?
It's funny. No, you did very well. We watched the video, and you were singing a nice love song to your wife.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was very nice. You get around. You do a lot of stuff.
Well, there's a lot of things happening, a lot of things to do.
We were talking this morning about adrenaline pumping activities. You get involved with a lot of that, don't you?
Well, there's a lot of activities out there that do pump adrenaline, and the adrenaline is really an amazing substance in your body. It sits, the adrenal gland sits right above the kidney, and when you send the right messages, it kicks in and it throws that adrenaline out into your system and immediately gives you that energy and that activity that you need to be able to handle the situation.
So it has a purpose.
It does have a very important purpose. It's also there for survival too.
Yeah, and that's where I was going. You went right where I wanted. What does it do? What does adrenaline actually do for you? Does it protect you somehow?
It's part of the fight and flight reflex that we have, which is our survival reflex. In other words, you have an emergency happen, a mother sees something happening to their child, that adrenaline kicks in, it blocks the pain, it
really?
It reduces there's the balance of body and mind, so it sort of turns down the reasoning of the mind and increases the ability of the body, so that way you don't stop and start rationalizing, can I as a human being stop this car? You don't think that. You go in and you stop the car. If there's an emergency and your son's in there or your daughter's in there.
Oh, wow.
As happened to me, actually. I think my if I remember correctly, my brother was in a car and it was parked on a hill, and it was the older cars, and the brake got loose and it started rolling down, and my mother stopped the car. So
she jumped in?
I don't know how she did it.
Oh, she wasn't in the car?
She wasn't in the car. No,
wow.
She stopped it with hands and feet. Supermom, that's right. So what happened is the adrenaline kicked into her body. She didn't question whether she could stop it or not. She went into an immediate instinctive reaction to be able to, it's a survival mechanism, and it increases the power in your muscles, it increases your reflexes.
Really?
It actually changes your parts of your body that are getting blood. More blood goes towards the muscles, less towards the stomach and the gut, so you have more energy to be able to handle the emergency situation that's happening.
And we can make it happen, not voluntarily, but we can put ourselves in predicaments so that we make it happen, I guess.
That's a real good point. So now what happens on a day-to-day basis, where we used to use that for emergency situations, now what happens is that we can stimulate the adrenal glands to kick in more regularly throughout the day through stimulants like caffeine, through stimulants like Mountain Dew, through different things that will, or the constant stress that we're under, because stress triggers the adrenals to kick and put adrenaline into the bloodstream, where instead it should be used, like, for example, if you get in an accident,
right,
the adrenaline goes into your system, morphine type substances go into your system, block the pain so you can handle the emergency and be able to protect yourself and survive in that emergency. It blocks the pain, and then about 72 hours later they start wearing off, so you start feeling more of the pain at that point. But in the scenario that what we do today is pretty much stimulate the adrenals regularly throughout the day by keeping up with coffee and keeping up with stimulants. So the adrenal glands get fatigued, they get overworked, and they're not quite as effective after that, and other things happen like chronic fatigue and other things can set in because of the overworking of the adrenal glands. So it's a fine balance.
Wow. There was more to it than I realized.
Look at how.
But I suspected that there was a reason. It's one of those things you kind of say, well, there's got to be a reason. God put it in there for some reason. You know,
That's right. That's right.
To take care of something.
Yep, it does. It's one of our very important tools that God has given us to be able to help our fight or flight, our survival mechanism. And it sounds easy just to say the adrenals kick in, but when the adrenals kick in, everything's changing. Your dilation of your pupil changes, your pupil opens up, your blood supply, your capillaries to your fingertips start closing up. This happens very rapidly. Your heart starts to increase. Your blood pressure goes up. Your movement of your stomach slows down, and we become more of a protective, reactive situation at that point.
Does pain surface more when we're relaxed? It sounds like if we're anxious, if we've got the adrenaline pumping, then the pain is going to be less. So does the opposite happen after it's all done? Thank God we made it through that.
Yes.
Then you start to feel the pain.
And how many times do we hear of that happening?
Yeah.
If there's an accident and or some emergency happens and you're dealing with it, and then after that passes, then the person passes out, or the person stops and thinks about it. Then the cortex starts working, and the rational mind, like, what just happened, or how did I do that? Then the person gets shaky, a little bit of shock. Sometimes they feel like they need to pass out, so they need to be put down on the ground. Those things, and that's an important topic also, because let's say that you're the first one pulling up to a scene of an accident.
Right.
You may have somebody jumping out of the car and running all over the place and trying to help other people. But what's important is to get them to calm down, get them to relax, get them to sit down if possible, because sometimes it's that adrenaline that's running. They're injured, but they don't feel it.
Yeah.
And they may be causing damage to themselves. So get them to calm down, tell them everything's okay, the emergency medical is on their way over, just sit down, everybody else is fine, and just have a seat. We see that a lot with parents with children in the vehicle. They're so worried about their children, the adrenaline's running, and they might not realize that they've been hurt. So get them to sit down and relax a little bit. Just reassure them the kids are okay. Let them visually see the kids, and then that will help them from hurting themselves.
And we do have a phone call. Let me real quickly mention the phone number so that anybody who does not know the number will be able to call you on the air. Again, it is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 622 WOCA. Good morning. You're on the air with Dr. Riadh Fakhoury.
Yes, good morning, doctor.
Hey, good morning.
When a patient comes in, let's say for the first time or maybe the second, and a lot of people they don't like going to doctors, they don't like going anywhere like that, dentists, you name it. Their adrenaline's probably, like we were talking about adrenaline, they're probably pretty high, flying pretty high when you come to your office.
Yes.
Before you do an adjustment, you don't usually do it when they're at that peak. You have to calm them down.
Yes.
And how would you do that?
Wow, good question. You're right in that when they come in, they're nervous, they're anxious, they're in pain. They're coming into a new facility. They might have never been to a chiropractor before.
Right.
And so there's so many different things. First thing that we see quite often is an elevated blood pressure, or that white coat syndrome.
Yep.
What's also interesting, because that adrenaline is running, what happens often, it's like taking your car to the mechanic. All of a sudden, my neck was killing me this morning, and now I'm here and it's not bothering, but it doesn't mean that the problem is not there. It just means that it could be covered up from that adrenaline rush that's blocking the pain. Almost like having an alarm with a fire, and you've just clipped the siren. The fire is still going, but the siren is just not putting the message out. So the pain indicators are not working as they normally would. That's where we rely on history and on examination and our fingertips and palpating the spine. And that's really where chiro, which means hands, and practice, that's where the strength is, because we actually put our hands on people, and that's where the healing starts, right then and there. And with the palpation, we can feel misalignments of the vertebrae, joints are out of position, some areas of arthritic changes, muscle spasms, swelling. We can palpate that, and with that we can have a better idea of what to do with the patient, and we move them in certain directions. And then as we take an x-ray, we know what the problem is, we're educating the patient. By that time, they're feeling more relaxed because they're interacting with the staff. They feel comfortable with the staff. They've met the doctor. They're not so apprehensive anymore. Now they're looking at their x-rays. They're starting to understand what's going on. They get a massage for 15 minutes to relax their muscles. That relaxes them too. And then they do very well with the adjustment after that because they're in a much more relaxed state. And communication is key also. So we're always talking to the patient, explaining to them what we're going to do. If we expect that they might get a little sore after the adjustment, explain that to them so they won't be shocked if they feel a little, almost as if they exercised a little soreness. And so all that comes with better understanding and more comfort.
With a patient that is let's say tense and goes for a massage, can you tell from the beginning of the massage through the massage to the end the feeling of the muscle and the relaxation taking place, a change in the body?
Yes, you can. You can. Very often you can. You can feel the tightness of the muscles, the stringiness of the muscles, or the ropiness of the muscle. And as you are working it, that muscle starts to unwind and starts to relax and stretch out. And you could actually feel the softness in the muscle afterwards. They'll feel better motion, more relaxed. And there's a lot of changes also because when you're getting a massage, it also releases the natural pain relievers in your body. Because some people, if you've had an hour massage, you almost get that feeling of euphoria afterwards, that total relaxation that just that very good feeling. Massage does that for you. It does. It's a very healthy scenario because it's not like the adrenaline where your blood pressure is popping up, your capillaries are closing down your extremities, and your hair is standing up. It's not that. Instead, it's more of a relaxation. It's soothing, and you get that euphoric feeling, which helps a person be more relaxed. And then we can do a better job with the chiropractic portion because we don't have that muscle barrier to deal with.
So you're basically saying that in probably a lot of cases that you recommend a massage before an adjustment to get the person in the right frame of bodiness, to accept the what's called procedure.
Right, to accept the procedure, you do much better if you have either some rehab and or massage ahead of time because you've warmed the body up. You're almost like an athlete that's stretched out before he goes for the run or the bike. You've relaxed those muscles and you've gotten them in a better state, and we find that multidisciplinary approach is very helpful, and that's why usually there might be anywhere from 8 to 10 massage therapists in the office available to be able to help those patients before their adjustment.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for those great questions.
You bet. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
So if we're in a situation where we pass out, and in the process of passing out, maybe even in a car accident, and we get injured while we're passed out, we don't remember that. So all of a sudden we've got an ache. Do you have to kind of backtrack and say, well, wait a minute, you didn't tell me you hit your head, and I'll say, I didn't hit my head, but you see evidence of it or something.
That's really good, because then what you're looking at is the skills of the physician to be able to determine what the injuries were, because you don't have the patient's input to tell you what happened to them. And that does happen. Patients may pass out, and they tell us frequently. Like yesterday, a gentleman came in that was in a motor vehicle accident, and he passed out for several minutes. And so from just the fear of the accident, sometimes the brain shuts you off, and you pass out to protect you from recording those things, and it just is a protective mechanism. Other times you could hit your head and then you pass out. Other times your blood pressure soars, and the overwhelming chemical reaction in your body can cause that to happen. The vagus nerve, which is right at the base of the skull, could get irritated, and that can cause some blood pressure changes and cause you to pass out. Number of reasons, but when somebody comes in a scenario like that, it's almost as if you're treating a child that doesn't communicate with you, or like a veterinarian that's treating a pet maybe, and has to figure out what the problem is without input, because they can't get feedback. So when we have that patient in front of us, we're looking at the mechanism of injury. We're looking at questions such as, did anything move in the car? Sometimes the headrest could be shifted. Sometimes glasses that the patient's wearing end up in the back seat. Sometimes
Wow.
a purse might end up in another on the floorboard in the front. So that helps us to rethink the accident and the mechanism of the injury, so we could see what happened to the
Yeah.
occupant. It's very important. Then we look for signs of bruising, contusions, abrasions, because they might say, Doc, I've got this bump on my head, but I don't remember where I got it
Yeah,
from.
right.
Well, sometimes you don't even pass out, Larry, and in 0.2 of a second, that whole impact and your movement of your body is finished. You might have been lifted up in the seat, hit the roof of the car,
Didn't know it.
come back down and not even realize it. And the same gentleman that passed out yesterday, all he could remember and all he could say after the accident is that he had swelling in the back of his head, and it's been painful to touch the back of his head.
Oh, no.
So he had direct
Wow.
trauma to that area. We have to recreate that, which is part of the exciting part of working with patients
I guess
and
so,
figuring
yeah,
out
yeah.
what their injury, because you can't miss anything, and you don't want to miss anything. It could be, for example, there was a daughter and a father, and they were in a van, and they were at a full stop, and somebody hit them, and they didn't hear the brakes. Well, in the mechanism, the father was reaching forward and bending to the right to get a coffee cup right on impact,
Right.
and the daughter was in the mirror putting makeup on
Oh, no.
with her head turned, talking to her father. So you could see how that makes a big difference. For example, if we have the listeners right now put their head forward,
Right.
put their head backwards, there's good motion. But if you turn your head to the right and now go forward and
Right,
backwards,
right.
you can't. So you involve different parts of your body, and that's where our 25 years of experience of trauma care, we've been in practice 28 years, but focused on trauma care and the orthopedics or the types of injuries that happen in those types of traumas, help us to be very specific on what got hurt, and in each part of it, like the muscle, the nerve, the disc, the bone, the ligament, they all have to be treated differently. So there's different types of treatments for different parts of the body that are injured. So we're almost the investigators or the sleuths to try to figure out exactly what was injured and how we have to address it.
Wow. The number to call Dr. Fakhoury right now on the air is 622-WOCA. That is the Climate Control Source Hotline, 622-9622. Can I squeeze in a quick story that you reminded me of?
Please.
When I was a kid, when I say a kid, maybe 17 or 18, I was hired for a little job to paint a gas truck, and the gas truck was this big cylinder, and so it wasn't a square top, it was a rounded top. Well, back in those days, I was really into top 40 music.
Okay.
And I would listen to Casey's Top 40. Remember Casey's
Right, I
American
sure
Top
do.
40?
That's
Okay.
right.
So I'd had my car, I had the door open so I could hear the radio, and Casey's 100 was playing, okay? I fell off of the truck onto my back, okay? And then I got up and I, got back on the truck and started painting again. That's what it felt like. But I noticed that there was like 4 songs, because I was really into it. I mean, I would pay attention. So
Right.
he was up to, let's say he was up to number 28. All of a sudden he's up to number 24, and I said, what happened to the other songs? So all these years, I've always thought, I wonder if I passed out. I had no way of I was the only one there. I fell off the thing and got up. That's what it felt like. But in recognizing the fact that I had a way to kind of mark time with that show,
Right.
I realized something happened. I was out for
So something did
maybe
happen.
12 minutes, whatever 4 songs take.
Very interesting, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
So that helps, and that's and really that happens also where patients say, the accident happened, and the next thing I remember, I heard somebody at the door saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Well, it takes time for people to run to the car, and so that's interesting now that you can put those pieces together.
And that makes it more interesting what you do, because as a doctor, you have to kind of know that there's an empty piece of information.
And that's critical, because it could be a head trauma, and we need to look further, because that might be something that shows up, as we saw in our Secretary of State, not in 1 week, but 2 weeks later, she started having secondary problems from a injury to her head.
That's right. She
So we
sure
need to-
did.
yeah.
And we have another phone call. Good morning. You're on the air with Dr. Fakhoury.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to ask, what's the importance of muscle memory when you get a chiropractic adjustment?
Okay, very good. muscle memory is basically when you allow a muscle to stay in a certain position long enough, it memorizes that, and it thinks that that's the normal pattern. And it's usually not, it's usually not positive, because it's usually where there's a tight muscle, excuse me, and it gets used to that, and it thinks that's normal, and that tight muscle pulls the bone out of position, and then it can cause some pain or some problems. So muscle memory is very important for us to address and be aware of, and to educate the patient, because there's things that the patient needs to do at home to help to break that muscle memory and get the muscle to function more normally. Why it's important for us as chiropractors is that if the muscle is tight because of memory and we're adjusting, we need that muscle nice and relaxed, or we're fighting against the muscle and we're not going to get the best adjustment for that individual. So we need to prep the muscle ahead of time, as we spoke earlier, whether it's massage, electrical stimulation, maybe some stretching through the rehab department, maybe some warm-up exercises, like patients might take a warm shower before coming into the office, doing some stretching, something that will relax that muscle, prep it so it's more supple, so when we adjust the vertebrae that it's attached to, that it's pulling out of position, the muscle doesn't react and tighten up more. And secondly, when we put that bone in place, that muscle memory, even if the muscle is relaxed, that muscle will try to tighten back up again and pull the bone out of position. Therefore, we want to break that muscle memory, sometimes by repetition, sometimes by stretching. Posture has a lot to do with that also, because if we roll forward with our shoulders, the top of our shoulders, the traps, become very tight, those two knots on either side of the lower neck. And so we'll work with patients on developing their posture, getting their shoulders back, and that relaxes those muscles, and that helps in the process of breaking the memory of the muscle, which is very important, because when the muscle spasm reduces, then the pain reduces also, and it helps break that cycle of chronic problems.
All right, you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, did you have a follow-up question?
No, thank you very much.
You
All
are
right.
very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question.
That is amazing, too. I mean, I guess everything about the body is
It is
amazing.
It's an amazing structure, and if you think about it, a great example of muscle memory, because people may not realize that muscles can get tight and short and stay that way forever. So that's why when somebody is in an accident or injury and their muscles are tight, it's very important for us to see them quickly before the muscle memorizes that and
Right.
holds that pattern, and get the muscle to relax, because the muscle's been traumatized and it wants to go into a protective spasm and tighten up, and it'll heal that way. It'll heal tight, it'll heal stiff, and we need to stop that process from happening. And a good example is if you break your arm and they put a cast across your elbow, and let's say it's bent at 90 degrees,
Right.
when they take the cast off, now the muscle memory is that muscle short, and the muscle memorizes that, and it's tight. It's hard to straighten that arm, and you actually have to go through rehab many times to be able to lengthen that muscle and get it used to relaxing and stretching out the way that it should. And that's very parallel to what we do in the office when somebody's been in a sports injury, or somebody has pulled a muscle, or somebody's in an accident.
Right.
Is we've got to train those muscles to relax so they don't develop a chronic muscle spasm and a muscle memory that will give them problems for years.
When a golf instructor or any sports instructor tells you you learned it the wrong way, it's hard to, you're going to have to untrain your muscles.
Yes.
That's what he's talking about then, huh? I mean, our muscles are learning, I guess, movement as well as stationary stuff.
And that sort of incorporates the mind also,
Wow.
because the mind learns certain patterns, and that's a good thing to think about. Let's say that somebody hurts their right low back. The muscles get tight. Now they heal that way. Now there's a muscle memory. And since it's tighter on the right, it pulls the spine to the right. So they'll have a tendency of leaning more to the right in the chair. And as they lean more on the right, then they lean more on the elbow. The elbow might start giving them some trouble. So now not only do we have the muscle memory, but we also have the posturing and the thought process of just the mind sets in. So in your example, when somebody is swinging, when somebody is let's say even rowing a boat incorrectly, you almost have to not only retrain your muscles, but you have to work with the mind a little bit, because it learned that pattern and it thinks it's the correct pattern. So what do they normally do? stretch the muscles, and then they go back to the basics. And the basics,
wow.
1, 2, 3, not only is working with that muscle memory, but also with that person's mind to break them of the old habit and develop some better habits.
I would guess it's harder to unlearn something and then relearn it than it is to just learn it the right way the first time.
It is much, much harder.
Probably.
Because you're in that pattern, and well, when you're in a habit, it's hard to break that habit. And we see people that have hip problems, they're limping. We treat them, the hip pain goes away, they continue limping. That's a habit. So you get
I can see that.
the habit portion, you get the memory portion of the muscle, and then you get the mind sort of used to that pain or that posturing. So you have to. Then that's for the fun at the Fakhoury Medical and Chiropractic Center. It's not just let's get you out of pain. It's how do we help you so that way the treatment is more complete, more holistic, more total. And then be able to carry that so you'll have less problems in the future, because so often somebody has a problem today, if it's not treated correctly, then it keeps reoccurring, keeps giving them problems.
So in a way, you're like an unhypnotist. You unhypnotize the muscles. You know, we hypnotize our own muscles by our behavior, and if we hypnotize them to have the wrong suggestion, to use the hypnosis metaphor, you unhypnotize them. You help us to undo what we did wrong. And
right. Well, you sort of detrain them
detrain, better
from
word, yeah.
from the poor habits or misalignments or poor biomechanics. That sort of covers it all. The poor biomechanics.
Yeah.
And we retrain it in a better portion. In fact, treatment is broken up sometimes in 3 portions. The first portion is the acute care. Let's get the person out of pain. Somebody's in a trauma accident. Somebody has, woke up with a stiff neck. First thing they want is relief. That's the first thing. The second thing is to do the retraining, to strengthen, to stabilize, to improve the foundation. And the third thing is make sure they keep it there with home exercises and posture and proper posture and habits.
My goodness. If I could retain everything you taught us all these weeks, I don't know. I would have a bigger head than I have.
Oh, you're
and I got a pretty big head, so pretty big. Well, good information. And Doctor, if obviously radio show just scratches the surface, if that, how do we get a hold of you? What's your number?
Well, if anybody has any specific questions, or if they're experiencing neck or back pain, or if they have been unfortunately in some kind of accident or injury, whether it's the yard or whether it's sports, or if it's in an accident, they do need to get in, and if they have any questions, they're welcome to call the office or make an appointment at 351-3413, and then you press option 4, and that'll take you to the front desk or our patient care coordinator, Amy. Ask whatever questions you have. If you need to speak with me directly, just leave a voicemail for me, or just leave a message with the ladies. They'll make sure I get it. I'll call you. Usually in the evening, I'll give you a call so we have some time to talk. And if you have some concerns and want to get checked personally where it's one-on-one, feel free to come to the clinic. We're there Monday through Saturday, and we do same-day appointments also, because when somebody's in pain, we make ourselves available to be able to take care of them. And if you are in a trauma or accident, as you know, Larry, the law has changed. You do only have 14 days, and those 14 days can slip very quickly. There was a lady that we were talking to, her father. She was making a left, and actually a motorcyclist that was weaving behind her tried to pass around her at the same time.
Oh, no.
And so it's been her neck's been bothering about a week, so it's already 7 days into the 14 days to be able to get the care.
Goes quick.
It goes quickly. It does.
Time flies.
It does.
The Head to Toe Care Show, Dr. Riadh Fakhoury. If you need his information repeated, feel free to call us here at the radio station. Go online. Robin already has it on the WOCA guest list for Wednesday. Dr. Fakhoury's listing is at 11:05. You'll see his name, number, and website, which is headtotocare.com. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Larry.
Another good one. We'll take a little break and be right back.
Accident, injured, hurting. Pain affects so many of us and keeps us from enjoying our daily routine. This is Dr. Riadh Fakhoury, board-certified chiropractic orthopedist at the Fakhoury Medical and Chiropractic Center. Let me visit with you to answer your questions. Let us help you help yourself on the Head to Toe Care Show every Wednesday, 11 a.m. on WOCA. Again, that's Dr. Riadh Fakhoury, here to help you on the Head to Toe Care Show every Wednesday, 11 a.m. on WOCA, The Source.
In specialty crop news from the Southeast Ag Net, well, our growers here in Florida have yet to endure a major freeze this season.